practical. Now, if I was going to make up a sling, you see, I might have a sling that might be like 10 feet long, and then what I would want to do is finish off the other ends of the rope. This is finishing off one end. Now the other end, I would want to make a backlash. Now you can see I've got some ends here that were cut off. Let's burn those, and then we'll. We want to be sure and burn them enough so they don't unravel with you. It's kind of a case if you don't burn them enough, they'll break. They'll break loose, and you're going to have a lot of strands that are going to be getting away on you. So make sure you burn it enough. Okay. Now we'll let this cool a little bit. When it comes to rope, now you see there's several classifications for rope. This is 3-strand rope. It's fiber rope. We can classify rope as being either wire or fiber. This is fiber, and this is polyprop. Polyprop is very popular at linemen. It has good dielectric strength, and it has low stretch qualities about it. Nylon has a high stretch quality about it, which makes it undesirable. It's strong, but it's that high stretch it makes it dangerous to work with. So the stranded rope is probably the more popular with linemen. It's a kind of a rope where you can work with it easily. You don't have to have special tools to splice and that sort of thing, so you'll use a lot of it. This double braid rope is becoming quite popular. You can use lineman, or you can use nylon rope there, and it doesn't have the high stretch to it just because of the construction of it. And like I say, we'll be splicing that out in the second year of the program. A lot of people now are using that rope for winch lines and that sort of thing. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to finish off the other end of our rope, and this time we want to put a backlash in it. And a backlash is easy to make up, and so on, and it'll serve it up. It's gonna serve to just make the end larger and then keep it from unraveling. The trick in making your backlash is to start it, and you see these strands are all preformed. You see how they take a shape. If they weren't preformed, we cut it, it would just unravel with you right off the bat. But it's preformed to hold its shape. If we were going to compare this particular rope to a wire rope, we would have a right regular lay, because we've got our strands and our fibers twisted in opposite directions, and that has a tendency to keep a rope from unraveling as well. Okay. Now what we want to do is to make a backlash, and when we make a backlash, what we need to do is get about the same amount of strands unraveled. Then what we want to do is identify our strands, not by number. We really don't care about that part anymore, but we need to know which strand is in the front. Now you can see the way I've got it unraveled. If I look at a cross section, you would see I would have one of the strands right in front, right where it breaks off. And I'll give you a closer look here. Right where that strand breaks off. You see, I've got one strand right in front of me. Then I've got one on the left, and I've got one on the right. Okay. Now, when I start this, I have to make sure that my one in the center goes straight back and make a loop on top. In other words, I can bend it to the back like this, and then have a loop coming up like that. I'm going to hold it down with my hand, and I'm going to keep that loop right up above like that. Then I'm going to take the strand that's on the left and I'm going to hold that down out of the way till I need it. Okay, then I'm going to take the one on the right and I'm going to come around the back and I'm going to hold that tail down like that, you see. Then I'll hold it down, and then that one strand that I've got on the left, I'm going to pick that up now, and then I'm going to poke it through my eye like this. See? Poke it in through the eye. Now what I want to do is grab a hold of, on top, I'm going to grab a, like I was holding a bunch of grapes. I'm going to hold it like this. Then I'm going to grab each strand, and then I'm going to work it around until I get them all pulled tight. And then I'll end up with a crown on top. See? Okay, I'll pull on each of them. Don't pull too much on each one until you get them all pretty close. When you get it close, you're going to see what you're going to do. You're going to have a flat crown. And I'll show you that too. Now you see that's flat on the end right there. If I hadn't laid the preformed strands over and back the way I did, you would find I would have one of those strands would be probably stuck out. I'd have a big knob on the end. You wouldn't have a flat crown like that. Now what we want to do is to tuck this 3 times just like we did our eye splice. And of course they're all laid out evenly. Now we can look at the end there and you see you got 3 strands at 120 degrees, so this should be easy to tuck for you. There, just grab any strand. You don't care which one. Just you have to perform your tucks just like you did for your eye splice. You have to take this strand right here, jump over the top of this strand, and then go under the next. And do that with all 3 of them. Now when you do it with all 3 strands, that'll be one tuck. Okay, now what I want to do is I'm going to lift up, stick my strand underneath there. Okay, and there again, now I'm going to go over the top of that one, under the next one. Okay, then I'm going to take the next one, over the top, under the next, just like chasing the rabbit through the bush here. Okay, we got one tuck. Then we go again, over the top, under the next. There, now I've got 2 tucks. Okay, one more tuck and then I've got Now there wouldn't be any reason to have to taper this one here after a way of splicing it so that you have a knob on the end of it anyway. You don't really care to taper, so you would leave it just like that. Okay, now you can tell when you've got a good one because they'll all be laying even. You'll end up with all strands all 120 degrees apart, see? Okay. Now what we could do is cut this, do the same thing we did for our eye over here, but there really isn't any need. It's not, you can see we'd be doing it the same way. Okay, now if this was 10 feet long, this would be an ideal sling, temporary sling. You can use slings, of course, for lashing down tools. You can use slings for about anything, hoisting transformers, whatever. The thing to remember about slings is that there's 3 ways to use slings. One of them is as a bridle, a single or a double bridle. If I would use 2 slings and say I would I would say I'm lifting up on a load, and I use a sling. Say, well, let's use a transformer for example. Say I hook this eye underneath the lifting lugs, and then I go over on the other side, and I have another eye over here, and I hook underneath the other lifting lug. Now that would be using it as a bridle. If I use one sling, that's a single bridle. If I use two slings, that's a double bridle. Now, you know, it isn't practical to have a sling that's just other than maybe you're using an endless sling or something like that. But usually the big problem when you use a sling over the top and you have two eyes on it is that they're too long. In other words, you're trying to get it up under and hang the thing, and you want to get more slack out of that sling. So most of the time we would probably use a sling and then just put a square knot on top. In other words, take your sling, figure 8 across your transformer, and use a square knot on top. That way you can get it down closer to your transformer. But as an example, this would be using it as a bridle. Now there's another application of a sling, and that's to use it as a choker. In other words, if I would run this sling through the eye like this, and then pull up on my load like that, now that would be using it as a choker. Another one would be if I had an eye on either end, and I hook the eyes into my load or onto my hook like this, and then I'm lifting my load in this fashion, then I'd be using it as a basket. Okay. Now, let's take the end of this rope, and we'll show you another way of finishing off the ends of the rope. There's a way of finishing off the ends of the rope where if you want to temporarily lash it down, serve it up, if you will, you can make a whipped end here with a piece of cord. Now I've got a pretty husky piece of cord here, and I figure that that'll show up better on the screen. But what I do is I make a bite. I make a bite with my cord like this, and then what I do is I wrap this cord around my rope and over the top of my bite. Here's my bite right here. Now what I'll do is I'll wrap that and I'll wrap it tight. I'll come up alongside of the bite, and I'll pull in a little closer so you can see what I'm doing here. What I have to do is, see, I'm going over the top of the bite that I've made here, and then I'm going to tie it down or lash it down, and I'll keep moving up my strand like this, holding it all the time with my thumb here to keep it tight. See? Okay. Reach underneath, pull it up. Now I want a serve that's going to be possibly its length, probably the same diameter as my rope. I'm going to go a little further. I've got some big cord, and it's going to be a little bit easier to do if I make it a little bit longer. When I pull it inside, you're going to see that I'd have some problems if I made it too short. This should be about long enough. Now what I'm going to do, here's my eye that I've got. Now I'm holding this so it won't unravel. What I'm going to do is stick the end of my cord through that eye like this. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is get this thing around. Now I want to keep this so it doesn't get away from me. Then I'm going to grab a hold of the cord over here, and I'm going to pull that inside like that. See? Now if I've got this made up properly, in this size cord, you're going to see it's going to be quite a pull to get that down inside. But once I get that down inside, you see, then it holds it down to where it can't get away, see? So I'm going to grab a hold of this cord, and I'm going to pull that right inside. Okay. Now what I'll do now is to take the ends of this and then just merely just cut them off. And there again, make sure you cut away from yourself like that. Okay. And cut the other one off like this. Okay, and then we've got our whipped end. Now you can see there's just no way that can come undone, because it's actually the serve itself is holding down the ends of our rope. So it makes a nice good way of finishing off the end of the rope, nice and tight.